You're listening to Civic Media. You can tune into any of our live shows on any radio station across the state with the Civic Media app. Find us in your phone's app store and listen anytime, anywhere.
Broadcasting across the state of Wisconsin on the Civic Media Radio Network and around the world on the Civic Media app. This is the Dom Salvia Show. And now, here's your host, Dom Salvia.
And welcome to the Dom Salvia Show. Thank you so much for listening, hanging out with me. Appreciate every single one of you. Got lots of choices, but here we are together. 855-752-4842. Aaron working hard on the board. We will get to your calls shortly. Want to get into, I guess, weather. This is normally not a weather channel or a sports channel, but Packers had a hell of a game, and this hurricane is devastating. The news just keeps on coming in, and so are the terrible political games being played by at least some on the right. Here is an update that I've found from the AP from just a short time ago. Widespread devastation left behind by Hurricane Helene came to light Monday across the South, revealing a wasteland of splintered houses, crushed cargo containers, and mud-covered highways in one of the worst storms in U.S. history. One of the worst storms in U.S. history. I think that bears repeating. The death toll topped 130, and that's as of right now. My understanding is still hundreds unaccounted for, and hopefully that is just a circumstance of cell towers being down, no power, those kinds of things, and hopefully the majority of those folks will be found. As the AP reports, a crisis was unfolding in western North Carolina, where residents stranded by washed out roads and lack of power and cell service lined up Monday for fresh water, a chance to message loved ones days after the storm that they were alive. At least 132 deaths in 6 southeastern states have been attributed to the storm that inflicted damage from Florida's Gulf Coast to the Appalachian Mountains in Virginia. The toll steadily rose Monday as emergency workers reached areas isolated by collapsed roads, failing infrastructure, and widespread flooding. During a briefing Monday, White House Homeland Security Advisor Liz Sherwood Randall suggested as many as 600 people hadn't been accounted for as of Monday afternoon, saying that some may be dead. President Joe Biden plans to travel to North Carolina on Wednesday. Government officials and aid groups working to deliver basic supplies by air, truck, and even mule to the hard-hit tourism hub of Asheville and the surrounding mountain towns. At least 40 people died in the county that includes Asheville. And I was on with Maggie earlier today, and we both talked about this. We've been to Asheville. It's a beautiful part of the city, of this country, and it has just been devastated by this storm. So our hearts go out to all those folks down there. The destruction and desperation were unimaginable. A flattened cargo container sat atop a bridge crossing a river with muddy brown water. Overturned pontoon boats, splintered wooden docks, and tree trunks covered the surface of a picturesque lake tucked between the mountains. And if you've seen the pictures, folks, it's apocalyptic. I'm not going to say biblical because I don't believe in all that, but some are describing it as such, a 1,000-year storm, and as the AP puts it, one of the worst storms in U.S. history. So slowly getting some aid in there, which is good. However you can get it, air, truck, and even mule, apparently the effort. Now, the North Carolina death toll included one horrific story after another of people who were trapped by floodwaters in their homes and vehicles or were killed by falling trees. A courthouse security officer died after being submerged inside his truck. A couple and a 6-year-old boy waiting to be rescued on a rooftop drowned when part of their home collapsed. Now, rescuers did manage to save dozens, including an infant and 2 others stuck on top of a car in Atlanta. More than 50 hospital patients and staff in Tennessee were plucked by helicopter from the hospital rooftop in a daring rescue operation. There's more to the AP story than that, but again, take a look at the photos, take a look at the news cycle on this. It is devastating. It is terrible. We still have approximately 600 people unaccounted for, and lots and lots of work to do. Now, in this environment, in this circumstance, What does the former guy do? Well, Trump criticized the Biden administration's response to the widespread devastation, even as his supporters call for cuts to federal agencies that warn of weather disasters and deliver relief to hard hit communities. Again, also from the AP. As president, Trump delayed disaster aid for hurricane devastated Puerto Rico and diverted money from the Federal Emergency Management Agency, that's FEMA, folks, in order to finance an effort to return undocumented migrants to Mexico. And Project 2025, backed by Trump supporters, but not Trump. He doesn't know anything about it. Oh, there's some good things in there. He doesn't know anything. He doesn't want to do with it. Yeah, that. Project 25 would restructure FEMA to limit aid to states and say that the National Weather Service, which provides crucial data on hurricanes and other storms, should be broken up and downsized. And of course, as mentioned in the last hour, Trump claimed without evidence on Monday that the Biden administration and North Carolina's Democratic governor are going out of their way to not help people in Republican areas. You hear the stories and, these kids dying, these parents drowning, and, officer in his truck. I mean, it goes on and on and on from Florida to North Carolina to Virginia. And this is where Donald Trump goes. Never let a good emergency, go to waste. Whatever political gain you can possibly get out of the suffering of others through a natural disaster with no evidence that your political rival would somehow do, I don't know, what you did when you held up disaster aid for Puerto Rico. Of course, you're saying this about your opponent. It's more projection because you literally did that. Pardon me. Biden has approved major disaster declarations for Florida, North Carolina, and South Carolina, allowing survivors to access funds and resources to jumpstart their recovery immediately. FEMA and other federal agencies, along with the private business and nonprofit and faith based organizations responding to the disaster in 7 states: Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Alabama, and Virginia. Each of these states are at different stages of their response and recovery efforts. However, all states are addressing the impacts, including impassable roads, communications, and water system disruptions and power outages, FEMA said in a statement. Now, Trump also suggested Monday that Georgia's Republican governor, Brian Kemp, had been unable to get in touch with Biden regarding relief. Oh, okay. So, not only, according to Donald Trump, the former liar in chief, not only is it the Democratic administration in North Carolina and the federal administration of Joe Biden holding back relief for these Republican areas. I don't know if the kid was Republican or not, but I'm pretty sure people want to help them. He suggested that Kemp couldn't get a hold of Biden. But, according to the AP, Kemp told reporters that he spoke with Biden the day before and that the president said to call him directly if the state has additional needs. I appreciate that, said Kemp. I appreciate that, said Kemp. In addition to the humanitarian crisis, natural disasters can create political tests for elected officials. Yeah, you think? You think Trump passed or failed his natural disasters? North Carolina and Georgia, 2 of the states hit by the storm, are key battleground states. As we know, Harris said in a statement, she and Biden are working with local leaders in the Southeast to provide support as they face the impacts of Hurricane Helene and begin to recover. More than 1,500 federal personnel have been deployed, including power restoration and search and rescue teams. Listen to local officials and stay safe. Harris said, "We are with you every step of the way." The FEMA administrator called the flooding in North Carolina historic, and the storm caused significant infrastructure damage to the water systems, communications, roads, critical transportation routes in multiple states, complicating recovery efforts. I don't know that anybody could be fully prepared for the amount of flooding and landslides that they are having right now. She said on Face the Nation, she visited several areas in North Carolina, sending bottled water, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, as we know this. But as AP notes, Trump's term as president, he visited numerous disaster zones, including the aftermath of hurricanes, tornadoes, and shootings. But the trips sometimes elicited controversy when he tossed paper towels to cheering residents of Puerto Rico in 2017 in the wake of Hurricane Maria. There's obviously more to it than this. Uh, but as mentioned, I'll throw this one out there. It wasn't until years later, again, 2017, Dude's out there throwing paper towels like he's shooting jump shots. Years later, just weeks before the 2020 presidential election, the Trump administration released $13 billion in assistance for the territory. Federal government watchdog found that officials hampered an investigation into delays in aid delivery. I mean, because of course they did. Because what? Donald Trump probably wanted them to do him a favor, though, because that's how he is. These are the facts. This is how Donald Trump dealt with those disasters in the past. That's reality. Now, you can say whether he'd do a better job right now than Joe Biden, but I kind of doubt it. A little bit more here also from the New York Times. Breaking news. Biden says he could ask Congress to pass aid for catastrophic damage. Just a little bit here, then we'll get to your calls, 855-752-4842. Biden said Monday expected to ask Congress for supplemental funding to provide relief to states devastated by Hurricane Helene, which left more than 100 dead and hundreds more unaccounted for. During remarks at the White House, Biden said he might need to call Congress in for a special session to help response to what he called catastrophic and history-making storm. As we know, lawmakers left Washington last week after passing a stopgap spending bill to fund the government until December 20th. Ooh-hoo! Here's what Biden said. It's devastating, referring to the Category 4 hurricane that wreaked havoc across Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Virginia. They've never seen anything like this before. We keep hearing that. Nothing like this before. Now, Harris cut a campaign trip short to travel to Washington for briefings with the Federal Emergency Management Agency on Monday. Biden said he expects to go to North Carolina this week. Trump traveled to Valdosta, Georgia, a hard-hit city near the state's border with Florida, for a briefing on the storm's impact and to help distribute relief supplies, his campaign said. Oh, God, I can't wait to see the shots of that. So, Biden on it, Harris cutting the politics short. Biden addressing this today. Perhaps there may need to be some help from Congress. Maybe going to have to cut the campaign and the party in short, folks. I know it's football season and campaign season, but there's some folks down south that might need some help. And it's not a joke. This is very serious stuff. Lives lost. Infrastructure, billions and billions in damage, certainly. It's amazing how quickly folks turn to the government, turn to we the people, to address these very difficult, complex, multi-state national issues. We can handle these kinds of things. Maybe there's some other things that we could handle as well. Everyone's a socialist when the emergency comes. Folks, this is the Dom Salvia Show, 855-752-4842. Coming back with some of your calls.
It sounds like these time and time again.
And welcome back to the Dom Salvia Show, 855-752-4842. Talking about this devastating hurricane, the reactions to it, the practical, the FEMA's reaction, the administration's reaction to it, the political reaction to it from, the former guy and even some of the megas out there. But we have some callers. They've been very patient. Let's get to them. Once again, 855-75-CIVIC. Dana from La Crosse. Welcome, Dana. What do you got for us?
Hey, good afternoon, Dom.
Hey, man.
Yeah, so it's always projection with this guy and these guys. No matter what the topic is, if they're accusing Democrats of something, it's because they know they do this stuff, and so they think everybody must do it, whether it's corruption, whether it's cheating in elections or here with disasters. Let's not forget, and this still goes under the radar a lot. Let's not forget that during COVID, when Trump and Jared found out that it was killing mostly black people in blue states, that's when they decided they wanted everything opened up again. They didn't even have the foresight to think it
Less
would
of a
not spread
concern
to
because of what? Wasn't their
Republicans.
constituents, Dana?
Exactly.
Uh,
They sat around for 2 months first, scheming how they could make money off of this thing. So they come up with this ivermectin crap. They all bought up a bunch of ivermectin, thinking they sell that to everybody. And then, when they heard it was supposedly Democrats that were all dying, they said, this is nothing. It's just a flu. Let's open up. I mean, they're just vile, disgusting people, Dom.
uh, I mean that reaction certainly is, and that don't we want something different in a leader? Don't we deserve something different in a leader? One that has empathy for all of the citizens, not just some of them, and not just some of them some of the time. And I remember the storyline there, Dana, on that. And that's really honestly that's kind of hard to believe, but I do remember reading that as well. But the AP, as they remind us today, the Puerto Rico Hurricane Maria, 2017. Trump went down there for the photo op, did his, shooting the paper towels into the crowd, having a grand old time, but didn't release $13 billion in assistance and aid to help with that devastating storm for another almost 3 years. It was 2017 when the hurricane hit. It wasn't until before the 2020 election that the Trump administration released the $13 billion, literally holding up aid from a hurricane. Oh, well, they're not citizens. Oh, it's a territory, whatever, man. Are you kidding me? That's our responsibility, right? Right? I mean, maybe they had some representative. Maybe they had a couple of senators. They'd be able to impact a little more than getting treated like that from the former administration. Of course, because it's Puerto Rico. I mean, you think if it was West Palm Beach, that the $13 billion would have been held up for a day? You think it was Mar-a-Lago? You think it was any of his properties that aid would have been held up for a day? I don't think so. I think if you really search your own heart, even you megas, you probably wouldn't think so either. But that's how he did it. So when he talks like this, when he lies about the governor from Georgia, Kemp, being unable to get a hold of the president, Biden, when they talked yesterday, it's just lies. It's vitriol. It's hardly worth discussing. But of course we have to, because this is who the Republicans, this is who you want in charge the next time something like this happens. Because there will be a next time. There's always a next time. You think Donald Trump is preparing for the next hurricane? No, I don't think so. He's got a Sharpie. He'll put it on the map. Oh, it's not going to go here. It's going to go over there. I don't buy it. He's not capable of the empathy. He's not capable of proper administration. He's just not. And I have zero hope that he will surround himself with the types of folks that would do that. I do believe that Harris recognizes that. I do believe that the vice president believes that she is not the only one that can fix everything. It takes experts. No one is an expert on everything. And if anybody tells you that, they're full of it, like Donald Trump. He is not the only one that can fix it. And if he surrounds himself with lackeys and yes folks and the political types and not the professionals and not the knowledgeable, not those that are truly serving this country and are instead there serving themselves, a disaster like this, and we're certainly not over it yet, and we'll see how it all pans out, and every administration has their time to deal with this, and I'm hopeful that this administration will continue to be competent. It seems thus far that that's the case, that I hope that continues to be the case, even with the headwinds thrown in, the politics thrown in from a guy like Donald Trump, or even Marjorie Taylor Greene, because she's out there as well. According to the Raw story, Greene pleaded with federal government to send relief to her state in the aftermath of the hurricane. Here's what she said. The storm was supposed to come directly across my district, but when it came through Georgia, went to the east, we mainly just got a lot of rain. When we go back to Washington, we'll be working hard to make sure that states like Georgia, South Carolina, Tennessee, North Carolina get all the funding they need. We've already signed a letter. We sent that letter to Joe Biden requesting relief that Brian Kemp, our governor, has already requested. So our entire delegation has signed on to that letter. We need it. We need them to step in and send the funds and the relief that these people deserve. Yeah, I agree. What about other funds and other relief that people deserve? Is it only socialism when it impacts you? Is it only okay when it impacts you and some of your constituents? Certainly not all of them. You know, it's times like these. I heard that song. Thank you for that. Love that song. Foo Fighters. It's times like these that the leadership and the politics and those folks in charge, that's when it really matters. The difficulties come in. I mean, everyone's great when there's money in the bank, right? But when times get tough, you find out who your friends are, and you find out what the philosophies are. And apparently, Marjorie Taylor Greene is all down with the socialism. Folks will come back with some of your calls, 855-752-4842.
You're listening to Civic Media. Find the latest news, information, and archives of all your favorite shows on the Civic Media website, civicmedia.us.
And welcome back to the Dom Salvia Show, 855-752-4842. 855-75-CIVIC. It's a phone number. It is a text line. We got some texters. We'll get to the callers as well, but texters, you'll go first. Trump in Georgia. No paper towels, just holding a notebook instead of an upside-down Bible to look important, wearing a Trump cap. Just a photo up at the expense of folks who lives have been turned upside down and loss of life. Yeah, it's certainly sad, and to do the politics on it, it's not the time. Now is not the time. Is it time to talk about climate change? Not now? No? When? Because this was a 1,000-year storm, biblical proportions, catastrophic, apocalyptic. Those seem like really bad words that people are describing this storm. And I haven't seen a dollar amount yet. We know the human toll is well over 100 people dead, 600 more still missing. And the actual infrastructure, the dollar amount, the houses, the homes, all those things. I mean, it's going to be a while, but it's a lot. As I mentioned, 855-752-4842. Jim from Brookfield, you're up. Welcome, Jim. What do you got?
Good afternoon, Dom. I just thought I'd share with you. I did catch Donald Trump's arrival at a Georgia airport on our favorite Republican propaganda channel. They covered it like it was the second coming. He landed to a small contingency of Georgia officials on the runway of the tarmac, including Kelly Loeffler, the failed Senate candidate who could not run re-election as being appointed. His comments were disgraceful. He said, "I'm here in person. Joe Biden's probably sleeping." And he also had the gall to question, why do we give aid to Ukraine, but we can't have money to help people who need it? This is hours after things have happened. But he also was greeted, which I found very interesting, by Franklin Graham, son of the evangelical, the late, Billy Graham.
Oh, yeah.
And I just want to point out the hypocrisy, how he is nothing but a political hack. I don't think his father would be very proud. But what on earth is he doing, standing behind Donald Trump campaigning, obviously a photo op campaign ad, where supposedly this, man of, religious man or whatever is supposed, should have been out really with the people helping him. But here he's up on a, airport tarmac, just posing smiling broadly with Donald Trump, saying what a great, person he is. And like I said, almost it's like the second coming. And all things will be solved because Donald Trump and Franklin Graham are there to take care of everything. So I found that very, very, very ironic.
Jim, thank you for watching it and reporting on it so I don't have to. For guys like Graham and Trump, their very presence is all that's needed. You're welcome, Georgia. Here we are. And given the fact that Donald Trump is specifically playing politics with this issue already, lying that Kemp, the Georgia governor, couldn't get a hold of President Joe Biden. That was a lie. They'd already talked by the time Trump even said that. Before he even said that, lying that Joe Biden and is somehow going to direct aid or is directing aid away from the Republican areas of North Carolina. Just because it's in his head, well, I'm just going to say it because that's what it feels like. But as mentioned, the projection, it's there, man. That's what he did in 2017 in Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico. It wasn't until before the election of 2020 he actually released $13 billion. So he was there right away for the photo op. He was there to jump shot and shoot hoops with the paper towels into the crowd. That didn't take long. But heaven forbid you got to, release the funds. Well, you had to wait till the election to do that. No, not someone I want in charge ever, and certainly not someone I want in charge when disaster strikes, because it strikes, it happens. It will happen again. Leadership matters. 855-752-4842. Who's your Bob? Hey, Bob, welcome. What do you got?
Hey, guy. How you doing today?
Good, man.
Okay, this whole thing with the paper towel down in Puerto Rico, behind the scenes, I heard 2 reports that his campaign staff had to back him down because he wanted to throw 10-ounce cans of vegetables at the crowd. Now,
come on.
Think about what that bad boy weighs.
Come on. He was going to throw cans of vegetables?
Yeah. And they
seems
talked him
like
out
a
of
really
it,
bad idea.
And he switched it to paper towel. But, man, think about the weight of a 10-ounce can of vegetables coming at you.
Dude.
Now, look, I have no respect for Donald Trump, but he is a big man, and a man that size can throw a can that small a good hard distance.
Generally, who's your Bob? I would concur, but he's also 78, and I don't know if that guy's worked out a day in his life. You know what I mean? So I hear what you're saying, and thankfully he's not in charge right now. I mean, what was it? If you could, what was it? Dodgeball. Remember the movie Dodgeball? If you could dodge a wrench, you could dodge a ball. Start throwing wrenches at him. 855-752-4842. Mark from the Sac, you're up. Welcome, buddy. What do you got?
Well, thanks, Dom. It's terrifying to think that Donald Trump, all the unhinged rhetoric he's been making, he's got there's a Supreme Court now that would ratify or endorse everything he does. I mean, whatever horrible thing Trump would do, that the Supreme Court would say, that's okay, he can do that. Donald Trump is such a toxic blend of Benedict Arnold, James Wilkerson, Aaron Burr, Caligula, Commodus, Nero. I mean, all the insanity
Voldemort,
is just
Darth Vader,
Voldemort, fictional characters too. I mean, he's just it just doesn't end with the man, and the resources that have been involved now in sheltering his ass when he's down in Georgia there should be not spent on Donald Trump being there. He should be out of the way like Joe Biden is right now, and not getting in the way and making sure that the resources are getting to the people that really need it. Donald Trump does not need to be there. He cannot give anything to those people at all right now.
He could, Mark. I mean, he could open up his wallet. I mean, the guy's a billionaire, right? I mean, hell, he was handing out money at the grocery store, if I recall. He was tossing, chicken sandwiches into the Alabama crowd, if I saw the video right. I mean, he's out there. He can do it. He could do it. But of course, he won't because he's a greedy bastard. That's how he got his money from dad, and then he kept most of it, I guess. He could do something, and one of the things he could do is no harm and stay out of the way. He could do that, and hopefully his presence there did not disrupt any needed help or any of those things. You don't know, but certainly you don't want a former president and current presidential candidate, politicking around a disaster area, man. It's just asinine. I mean, they're still looking for people. Maybe now's not the time, let alone, but he just can't wait. He just can't wait to jump in, make it about Trump, make it about how his opponent isn't doing this or isn't doing that. This is again, there's consistency in the mega movement in Trump if you can find them in these worse, very specific ways. Once again, 855-752-4842, 855-75 Civic. Want to get into this immigration statistic that people have been bantering around lately, but let's get Gail in. Welcome, Gail. What do you got for us?
Yeah, good show, Dom.
Thank you.
Just a little bit here. This is just a tip of the iceberg as to what's to come with this. This is mankind's rapid acceleration and destruction of the Garden of Eden.
Oh, what you think? Like burning the ground beneath our feet for the last 100-some years is causing any sort of problem? I mean, the former president said it was just all a hoax from China. What am I supposed to believe, Gail?
Well, I'll tell you what, you've got to believe the scientists. This has been going on for years and years. They've been warned about it since Jimmy Carter was in the White House with the solar panels on the roof. And no. Drill, baby, drill. Okay, here you go. This is what we got. We got mankind's rapid acceleration and destruction of the Garden of Eden, just like how rapid this hurricane gained strength and a rapid acceleration.
Yeah, Gail, and we haven't even really gotten to that point, haven't talked about it. I've been kind of joking, right? Is it too soon? You know, the Republicans are every time there's a mass shooting. Is it too soon? No, it's not too soon, Gail. I mean, this is a thing, right? Should we be addressing it in the same breath? A guy like Donald Trump will lament the fact that we're using there's money going to Ukraine, but not going to North Carolina fast enough. He'd talk about the Green Deal or trying to evolve away from petrochemicals as our power source and into renewables. Britain, as the New York Times is reporting today, Gail, Britain just shut down their last coal plant. I don't know what the percentage was. I heard a stat earlier, but something to the effect of 50% or more of their energy is being produced by renewable energies, and they just closed their last coal plant. What does he say? Let's see. Oil and gas account for majority power supply, although renewables are now, 40% of the electricity generation in Britain, according to the New York Times. 855-752-4842. All right, let's do a little switch here to the immigration conversation. Apparently, there was an ICE report out last week brought to my attention by one of our callers, and it kind of misrepresented it when he presented it, talking about 13,000 illegal migrants on the loose in the States. Essentially, that's what you would have me believe. Number one, that's not the case. And number two, what he also did bring up was, well, we don't know how many of those were under Trump. And of course, there's, well, what about under the presidents prior to that? A couple of pieces here. I'm just going to throw this one out. Lindsey Graham was on CNN with Jake Tapper yesterday. And again, a lot of megas are using this particular statistic and trying to make something more out of it. Now, here's what Graham complained about. 400,000 people have been let loose in our country. 16,000 people convicted of being a rapist. 13,000 convicted murderers. And 400,000 people generally convicted of crimes were released on her watch. And it's not going to her watch is not going to get better. That was Lindsey Graham, Senator Graham's quote yesterday on CNN. Now, Tapper punched back rhetorically. And here's what he said. Okay, so I saw that statistic and we dove into it. Our fact checker, Tapper replied. That statistic is actually over decades. Yes, over decades, Tapper said. Some of those people you're talking about are people that came into the country during Trump. Oh, yeah. If it spans decades, it certainly would. And second of all, some of them are in prison. A lot of them are in prison, not ICE prisons, but federal prisons for their crimes. Well, that's doesn't seem quite what we were told. That doesn't seem like the headline that was given to us. Doesn't seem like what the megas were saying. Not at all. So the Washington Post has a piece out as well. How Trump is distorting immigration and crime data and new attacks on Harris. The subheadline: Republicans and the Trump campaign made false assertions about Homeland Security statistics on undocumented immigrants with criminal records by using data spanning 40 years to pin on the Biden administration. You know what do they say, Aaron? There's lies, there's damn lies, and there's statistics. And you give any of those to someone like Trump, like Lindsey Graham, like some of the mega callers on this show, and they'll say, well, it's all Harris. She's the border czar. No, man, this is 40 years of data, and some of that data isn't even as you present it.
A lot of these people seem to believe they live in a post-truth era.
Well, we just laid down the facts here, Aaron. We appreciate all you folks. Come back. One more segment. We'll dive into some of the data here just a little bit so you are prepared to have those conversations with your mega friends. 855-752-4842. And thank you for listening to the Dom Salvia Show. Last segment of the day. If you got something to say, hit us up right now on the lines. Talk or text 855-752-4842. Texter from the WMDX says, "Will CJ apologize for lying?" Well, maybe he just didn't understand the deets. So let me throw a little bit of the deets out for you. According to the Washington Post, the Trump campaign and allies of former president are distorting official Homeland Security statistics on undocumented immigrants with criminal records, claiming thousands of those migrants have come during the Biden administration when, in reality, the numbers that they're citing span decades. Decades. That's multiple. In fact, 40. The data was released by the Immigration and Customs Enforcement to Congress last week, shows there are 13,099 immigrants with homicide convictions who are not currently jailed by ICE. Again, that's a very specific statement. Not currently jailed by ICE. Now, on Sunday in particular, Republican lawmakers seized on the data to criticize Dems, of course, specifically Harris, whom former President Trump has tried to portray as weak on the border as the election approaches. Trump and his allies claimed that the 13,000 plus immigrants cited by ICE in a letter were released by Democrats and are at large posing danger to U.S. citizens. But as the Washington Post notes, Republicans are misrepresenting the ICE data, DHS spokesperson said in a statement on Sunday. Now, the 13,099 immigrants with murder convictions cited by Trump and his allies are part of ICE's non-detained, quote-unquote, non-detained docket. Now, that's a list of nearly 7 million people who have pending immigration cases before the agency, but who are not jailed by ICE for various reasons, such as because they are currently incarcerated by federal, state, or local authorities. Oh, so if they're not by ICE, maybe they're in the federal, state, or local authorities. I don't know, maybe. Or because they've already served their criminal sentences, but have not yet been deported. Now, immigrants living in the United States illegally who commit crimes and go to prison are typically transferred to ICE custody once they complete their sentences here. Now, ICE may try to immediately deport them to their home countries, but some have pending immigration cases and receive permission to remain in the U.S. while their claims are resolved. Now, an immigrant who commits a homicide at the age of 20 and completes a lengthy U.S. prison term could be allowed to remain in the United States upon release if a judge allows it. For example, because the person has a U.S.-born children or other reasons. Now, the vast majority of the homicide convictions are not individuals who came into the country during the Biden administration. Oh, wait, what? Let me repeat that in case you're slow. The vast majority of homicide convictions are not individuals who came into the country during the Biden administration. They are immigrants who've been added to ICE's records over the past 40 years. Many of those on the list were added during the Trump administration. The data goes back decades and includes individuals who entered the country over the past 40 years or more, the vast majority of whose custody determination was made long before this administration. Now, the data first started circulating after ICE Director PJ Lechleitner, pardon me, PJ, sent a letter on Wednesday replying to requests from Rep. Tony Gonzalez, a Republican from Texas. Well, of course, it doesn't matter whether or not the stats are accurate or whatnot. I mean, even if the stats, I believe what the stats are. Now, how you interpret the stats and what you think the stats mean and who's to blame for it, well, you got to dig in a little bit. But if you see a headline saying 13,000 convicted murderers, oh my God, it's all Harris and Biden's fault. Well, if you don't read behind the headline of, Foxy or Newsy or whatever you get your news from, maybe you'd be calling up radio shows like the guy did on Friday and say that same bunk to me. Now, the number of cases on ICE's non-detained docket nearly doubled during the Biden presidency when illegal border crossings reached record highs between 2021 and 2023. The data in the letter shows that as of July 21, there were about 660,000 non-citizens with criminal histories on ICE's national docket. Of those who are not being held by ICE, 425,000 are convicted criminals. Now, the data reported in the letter represents immigrants recorded over the past 4 decades, as mentioned, though the letter doesn't specify when the record officially began. Now, an analyst with the American Immigration Council, Aaron Reichlin-Melnick, noted that the number has gone up by 15% since 2015. Also noted that the docket has been here for decades and can't be deported often for diplomatic reasons. Now, this was interesting. Anyone on ICE's non-detained docket with a homicide conviction has likely been in the country for decades, served a full criminal sentence, and cannot be removed because they're from a country which restricts U.S. deportations. Well, isn't that a quirk? There are others on ICE's non-detained docket who have serious criminal records who, after serving their time, managed to win some form of protection or relief from removal. They're now here legally, but remain on the docket and are required to check in with ICE periodically. There's no evidence that undocumented immigrants commit violent crimes at higher rates than U.S. citizens. In fact, I think there's probably trending that would suggest that's not the case. But I digress. Over the weekend, Trump and his allies cited none of these details. Oh, no, none of those details, because it goes against what they're saying, right? Including what Trump had done with the migrant backlog during his term in office. Instead, during a rally on Sunday in the swing state of Wisco, we played some of that sound earlier, several enlarged posters with images of migrants in orange jumpsuits were used as a stage backdrop. Trump falsely alleged that 13,000 convicted murderers have crossed the border and are free to roam and kill in our country under the Biden administration. On Sunday, he again cited the distorted statistics during a rally in Erie, Pennsylvania. And earlier the same day, Senator Cotton, a Republican, repeated the same false claim on CBS's Face the Nation, quoting, quote him, "The Biden administration just acknowledged that they released more than 13,000 convicted murderers who illegally entered this country." Now, of course, Cotton's not a dumb guy. I'm not going to talk about Donald Trump. They're saying this specifically and purposefully. So you mega faithful go out and believe this. And it's not true. They're not eating the pets. They're not eating the dog. They're not eating the cats of the people that live there. People, do better. This is the Dom Salvia Show. You always do better when you tune in to me. Coming up next, Nightlight with Pete Schwaba. Tomorrow, Josh Call. And we'll preview the VP debate with Walz and Vance Pence. Thanks for listening.
The national news cycle never stops, but it can be hard to find news about your local community. Civic Media is dedicated to providing quality local and state news coverage across Wisconsin. With the Civic Media app, you can get notifications about local stories that matter to you and your community. Find the free Civic Media app in your phone's app store and choose notifications from the menu to tell us what kind of news you want to hear about.